live on social media. Hello, everyone. So cool to be back and to do another episode of the Puppet Podcast. I'm Caroline. I'm doing this podcast with a lot of passion because I want to bring the follow spot towards this art form that is puppetry. And yes, I'm so glad because we connect with many Canadians, and tonight we have Andrew G. Young. So cool. So yes, before we go into the interview, I just want to let you know that we have this wonderful Patreon that we do, and we want to bring some attention towards the puppetry. So we give some tips and tricks about promotion online. So here it is. I share it. So you can have a look on that. It's, Patreon is a wonderful platform. So I really invite you to have a look on it and see the content that we put. We put a lot of great stuff about promotion, but also if you are a puppeteer and you want to conquer more of the online stuff, you could have access to those puppet workshop of building, of online streaming, about many subjects that we have. So here was about Zoom workshop with children, how to do that. And so, yeah, have a look on that with our wonderful Patreon account. So the address is Patreon/Puppet Podcast. Really simple. So that was the commercial. So now let's go into this wonderful interview. So he have traveled all over the place in US, in Canada, and in Hong Kong. So tonight he's talking to us from Ontario. Please welcome in the screen, Andrew G. Young. Hey!
Hello!
I love to make it ta-da! Really.
The big entrance.
Yes. Andrew, so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, I want yourself to introduce yourself actually to the crowd who are watching right now, and tell us how you fall into puppetry.
So I work as a performer and predominantly as a puppeteer in many different styles of puppetry. And how I kind of got into puppetry, I saw a really amazing show. So way back when I was in theater school, I was living in Toronto at the time. And we had a little 2-week course on puppetry. And then we went downtown to see a show by the Old Trout Puppet Workshop called The Famous Puppet Death Scenes. And this was one of the most bizarre, weird shows, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Because it was chopped up into little scenes, and within each scene, they were all drastically different from each other, all based around famous puppet death scenes in plays and movies and basically whatever they made up. But it was really beautiful because you have this really bizarre dark humor puppet of two characters speaking in gibberish, standing outside of doors, and then a monster comes and eats one, and then this really beautiful scene of this old man falling apart and slowly becoming the walls around him. All while these scenes are so different, but so funny and so real. And it was just one of the most captivating shows that I've ever seen. And then once I saw that show, I immediately went back to my apartment and got my housemate, and we grabbed a bunch of paper and tape, and we started mocking up things together and creating these characters. And we ended up building like 36 different people puppets and throwing them around and seeing how they moved. And ever since then, I've been hooked. And I started creating shows with my friends, and then that was 11 years ago. And wow. I've been kind of traveling since.
Yeah, so cool. So yeah, you get a crush moment with the Old Trout theater. And I want to just place, as you were trained as an actor first, and you perform as a dancer, clown, and also silence performance. So are you calling sometimes yourself like multidisciplinary artist or something like that?
I do. So I went to Humber at the time, was a very collective theater-based school. So I went to school with the same 17 people, and we created shows we started a show in first year and finished it in third year. We were always constantly creating as an ensemble. And I really fell in love with that. And then we did different styles. So we did like contact dance, clown, mask, all sorts of stuff. And I guess how I would label myself is just kind of a theater creator, just because that's more succinct.
Yeah.
And also just kind of, I always get a little confused trying to like explain what I do, because it's always like, and I do this, and I do this, and I stage manage, and I build the set, and I do this, where that just kind of goes, I do whatever is asked of me, and I try and make it as best as I can, if that makes sense.
That's so clear. That's like theater and all around theater. That's great.
Yeah.
And I think we need those kind of advice and exchange to know and how to explain what we do to others, because it's key in our job.
Totally. And it's just many, many years of going, what am I doing? And trying to write it a business card, and it ends up being this big, and it keeps folding out because there's more and more titles on it. And just theater creator.
That's great. I take that. And I just want to let you know, Andrew, that we have people watching from Virginia.
Hello.
we and people, if you want to write down in the chat, like from where you are watching, it's always good to drop it. And if you have any question for Andrew, feel free to write it down. So my deep question, are you ready, Andrew, for the deep question of the Puppet Podcast?
Well, we'll see how it goes. I think so.
Yeah, the first one is the why. Like, what makes the art of puppetry an art that you cherish?
What I cherish about it is how much you can create within that space, and you can create an entire universe, and you can pick and choose and expand on it, and you can really create the rules within that. So like you don't have to deal with gravity if you don't want to. You can have a character that constantly changes sizes. You can do the scale. You can have a character created completely out of light. It's just so vast, the possibilities that could happen. And then you could have this entire universe and then shrink it all down into something and then move on to something else. The endless possibilities within it, and the collaborative aspect of it. Just because I went to a collaborative school, and that's kind of my background, figuring out how to do this and then work with somebody or multiple people on creating a character, and then figuring out how you can uniformly all move them at the same time, or if you're handing off a puppet back and forth to different people, like matching the rhythm and the intention and creating the focus on just this character. There's this movie the documentary called Puppet, which tracks a show in the States from creation to being on Broadway and then getting panned in the reviews and all sorts of stuff. But there's this really great line from it. And what I love about it that kind of encompasses puppetry is that a puppet on stage struggles to live where an actor struggles to die. So you're constantly having to give breath and focus and send all this energy into this puppet. And it's getting all the puppeteers' focus and all the audience's focus at the same time. And it's this really cool moment of like making people care about a box. And then being able to put it down, like, okay, next thing, let's move on.
That's a right image, like to take care of the box, the object. And I love this quote also. It's really, really nice. So for your info, Andrew, we have people watching from Los Angeles, and we have also Jim. Jim,
hey, Jim.
that you know.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Yay. Happy to have you on the show, Jim. So the next question, you talk about your crush moment with Old Trout. But I want to maybe go like more in the past. Do you have another crush, maybe when you were a kid or?
Yeah. So I grew up kind of watching the Muppets, obviously. That was kind of a staple. But one thing that's, I always was kind of fascinated by the more surreal stuff, or more like surreal comedy. So like I grew up watching Mr. Bean kind of every day. And even though like it's this same kind of like heightened reality within a puppetry show, where it's within the world that we live in, but the rules are slightly different. And I always found that kind of fascinating. And the same way, like watching the Muppet Show and seeing people interact with these Muppets and understanding that they're talking to somebody's hand, and that was and the way that they would fully convince themselves that they would talk to this person moving their hand as somebody's crouched down way down here. I always found that fascinating, and just the aspect of live performing that was really interesting to me. And all these people focused on creating this energy and this all the focus within the show. Like I always kind of fell in love with that before I even got into theater myself. Like I didn't really get into performing till later in high school, but those things were kind of ingrained in the back of my head.
Yeah, the collective work, and that's why also your training was also collective school and stuff like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I want to know, as training, we're talking about like the field of study. So for you, what would be the best field of study for someone to become a puppeteer?
That's a really hard question.
Yeah.
So the what I would say is the best field of study is to go see as much as you can and understand what you like and what you don't like. And 9 times out of 10, any puppeteer you go up to and you ask them how they did something in a show, they will run backstage and grab the puppet and show you because they're so excited about the mechanics of it. I remember I was seeing a show in Toronto again, and there was this dog puppet that ran and it had a little wagging tail, and it was a TYA show, so there's a bunch of kids, and then there's me and my friend standing awkwardly at the back waiting for all the kids to go by, and then we're lean in and go, "Can you show us the dog? Because we're really interested. We're puppeteers too. We want to know how this works." And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he runs back on stage and gets it, and he shows us the mechanics of how the toggle switches work inside. And yeah, so I would say just go and see things and then go ask questions, and like try and find people that are doing intensives or doing workshops or something, and whether you go to them or not, just go and talk to them and tell them what you're interested in and why you want to do it.
And it's interesting you bring that, the why, like you have to tell also the why to people. That's true. I want to ask you also your definition of a puppet. We talked before the interview a little, and we talk about object theater. I know you do that also. So I want to know your own definition in your own word of a puppet.
So this is something that I debate with with people on and off over many beers. But my current stance, and it probably will change within the next year or two, but it's an inanimate object that's brought to life by someone to give it feelings, thoughts, or emotions, or a combination of all three.
Wow.
I've been sitting this last year. I've been sitting down, so I've just been sitting and reading and thinking and going, what does this mean? How does this work? What am I trying to say by doing these things? And it ends up.
But you have 3 things. I just want to recap. Say it again, just to.
An inanimate object that expresses thoughts, feelings, or emotions, or a combination of all three. Eventually, it becomes all three, always. But it's something that can convey a thought or a feeling to an audience member. And whether that's something that's this big, or it's a teapot, or it's a giant 15-foot puppet that 4 people have to work to walk it back and forth.
Yeah, I love it. It's deep in content and thought. It's true that puppetry could express thought and so bring thought in image and thought into action, and it's really cool.
That's one thing that I really like about puppetry, especially because a lot of the work that I like is nonverbal. So being able to convey those thoughts within a puppet, or seeing something that, seeing a character on stage go through the thought process and being able to read what he says, whether it's something like if you're doing a Muppety style thing where it's, yes, or no, or maybe, like it's those kind of base gestures that are within the common vernacular that people understand.
Yeah.
That's another thing I find it fascinating about puppetry is like just seeing a character sit down and breathe. Like that's so riveting because that is the potential to be anything. And it's even like within theater in general, like that's one of my favorite moments is when the lights go down and it comes back up and you see people just sitting and breathing and you go, oh, okay, something's going to happen. But what?
That's great. That's true. You are a good observator. You observe stuff. We have Robina who quote with what you say. She say the puppeteers awake the puppet and the audience then invest their own energy to keep that puppet alive. That's quite a good
very good, Rob. That's it. That's awesome.
a good jam on what you tell it. And I want to ask you also, do you feel puppetry is in an ascension right now? Or like, it's funny because we are in a funny situation with the pandemic, but in your observation with the online and whatever you saw, do you feel the ascension or not?
I think we are in an ascension just because it's becoming more well known, even without the realm of the theater. We have more, like especially with Netflix, with like Dark Crystal coming out, and that whole series being sent out, and then even The Mandalorian, where you have this little tiny puppet move back and forth. Like it's moving slowly away from being a kid's thing, where I think, especially in Canada, we're all kind of stuck that puppetry was a kid's performance art, which it has total value to be that, but I think it's starting to crack that it can be other things too. Especially because there are a lot of shows that I've seen around Ontario in like Stratford or Shaw or just Toronto Theatre. There are a lot more shows with puppets. They're not puppet shows because I get this weird definition where I don't call it a puppet show because it's if the main character is not a puppet, or if there's people interacting with the puppets, or the puppets aren't the focus, it's not a puppet. It's a show with puppets that kind of enhance the show. So, and that's different from being like a cabaret thing. But there's been in the last 4 or 5 years, there seems to be more and more things that are popping up within these shows.
Yeah. That's interesting to say a show with puppet and a puppet show. It's
a weird little
a little detail, but it's part of the process. I want also to ask you about your goals as a puppeteer or for your career, or you have something you envision for the future?
I guess like kind of my only real goal is to make people happy. And try and do that as best as I can, whether it's through performing or sparking an idea or giving a show and somebody takes some moment from out of it and enjoys that hour and whatever. That's kind of just what makes me happy. Like it's the last couple of years I've been traveling around the world doing this, and it's been amazing. And I never thought I would see the places that I've been, let alone on somebody else's dime, which is always better. But yeah, I guess my goal is to just keep going as long as I can. And then when my body can no longer hold up to holding things and wiggling giant objects around, then I'll move on to something else. But for now, I'm just going to try and keep going.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good goal. Make people happy. That's the duty of artists also, to make people feel stuff. So Rubina said something about historically, and she's from Canada too. So it was not for kids.
Yeah, that's right.
But so the puppetry side of it. So thank you, Rubina, for this. That's true. We want to reach more people, and let's do that. I want to ask you also the vision. We talk in terms of future. I want to know, where do you see puppetry in 10 years?
That's another really like
those deep questions.
10 years is such a long. Like I hope that it's recognized as like a viable art form on its own, which it is, but more in the general population, people
Mm.
going, oh yeah, where I basically wanted it to be at a point where I can go, oh, I'm a puppeteer, and then people don't ask me if it's like this kind or like this kind. If that makes sense. But it just making it more familiar within the general population, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, and that's the goal of other puppeteers. We have had another Canadian, Sid Croft, who said that, like, he wants to have everyone have a good image when someone say puppet, or even the word is in other language, like what it vibrate to. So cool. And maybe you have a puppet somehow around you.
Yeah.
For the conclusion, we always ask to show something or to express what you think about it.
So I've got this puppet, which kind of has evolved, and it's my skeleton puppet. So he's made completely out of garbage and paper and tape and paint. So he has evolved throughout the show, and his purpose kind of changed once I started doing the show. So in a cabaret, I was doing this bit where he wakes up in a coffin and gets out of the grave, and then he gets confused why people keep running away from him because he doesn't realize he's a skeleton. And throughout the show, he slowly falls apart. So as he's going around, he's walking, and then somebody hits him, and his head pops off. So the way that this one works is just a piece of foam and it's just put inside. So this was the first show that I did, and actually midway through the scene, as it's just a torso running around, his leg fell off. So I don't know if you can tell, but on the back here, there's some parachute clips.
Yeah.
So what they do, I had a pair of shoes that I made that had parachute clips on my toes. So he was a single operated puppet. So his feet would be on my feet. His arms, I'd control him, and then I'd switch back and forth to the head.
Yeah.
So once his leg fell off, and then I had to figure out how to get his body off stage and then the other leg off stage, and doing the splits, he kind of evolved into a puppet that slowly breaks down the entire show. So like he's made out of wood and things, and he's got little kind of hands. And then after part of the show, his hand falls off, and then his arm falls off, and then his leg falls off, and it ends up being just a big stump spine hopping around the stage. So he's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Is it a bottle?
Yeah.
The head?
It's a ginger ale bottle. I don't know if you can still tell, but we've just painted the inside of it. So that's a big thing when I was coming out of school and creating shows with my friends. We had no money, so we'd go around to back alleys and find cardboard and garbage and collect it all, or we'd walk down the streets and find random things and bring them back to our apartment. And then we would sit in the living room and create these weird puppets out of garbage. I guess because like our training, we never really had a building class per se, so we didn't really learn any techniques of how to make something. So it was a lot of like, if I stick enough hot glue on this, it'll hold, or if I sew this 1,000,000 times, it'll hold together. And then obviously throughout the show, he falls apart. And so yeah, we used to have
the material and the reaction and the knowledge that you don't have maybe to serve your show. That's great.
Yeah. And then later on, I started doing more object puppetry because I found that really kind of an accessible. You can grab something and create a character. So this is one of my favorite objects. Most of the objects that we've done have been created of a kitchen, just because I find that is one of the most unique shapes, and then one of the easiest ways to try and find faces within things. So this guy's my favorite because I use them every single day because I'm way too obsessed with coffee. But if you can find things,
I have the same. So maybe in the morning I will do that and think of you, Andrew.
So this guy can easily, you've got like the defined nose, so you can kind of walk around and and then you've got like his body that you can kind of create him to walk down, or different parts that pop out. So you've got the body, the head, and a little arm.
Ah,
So
yeah.
yeah, and even within that, like what I found fascinating about object theater is how little a puppet needs to define to be a puppet. Sorry, that's probably really loud. But even just something as simple as like an indicator of the face,
Yeah.
or even a little ball on a flat sheet. You see it as like a nose, or just like eyebrows. Like how little needs to be on it to convey the message. I got in this weird kick of like minimalism in performance. So like doing that and understanding like if I have a spoon that just has one hand, like how many different things can I do with that with just that? And then how fast can I change it into something else? Yeah, so the show that we did was like a playback theater style show where people would tell us stories and then we'd recreate their stories as somebody wrote music on a piano for us as we would pull out these random objects and do. It was a real crazy adventure, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you shot them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I think I'm in echo right now.
Oh,
but it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like the muscle of trying to really actively listen during a show. Like especially like I know touring a show, you can kind of get into a routine where you've done the same thing 100 times and it kind of just goes weird. But that show too is like you actively need to listen to the person's story because you've never heard it before, and then trying to figure out how to communicate with this other person without talking and like giving away the joke. So it's a really great exercise to keep the brain kind of sharp.
Yeah, improv muscle. It's really key.
Yeah,
so interesting. Andrew, you are full of talent with improv, dance, clown, puppetry, and all of this like creative mind of minimalism. I feel we have an artist in front right there. So cool to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. It was really great to get to talk to you.
Yes, and if people want to reach at you, want to see more of your stuff, where they should go?
Probably the best place to find is just go to my website, which is andrewgyoung.com.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful website.
Well, thank you. I spent a lot of time plugging away at a computer and getting really frustrated because I'm not great at computers. But thank you. That's really great.
Yeah, it's a way to show to the world that you do a lot of stuff you have done and you will. So that's good. So yeah, everyone have a look to the website of Andrew. So it's the end, Andrew. I will have to push you out of the screen right now.
Okay.
But stay in the virtual studio. We can chat after that. But yeah, you can say bye to the crowd.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yahoo! Everyone, thank you for watching this other wonderful episode. So stay tuned. We have another one on Thursday. And you can also have a look on our Patreon, but also we do some coaching. We help puppeteers to get some attention on the web, get more gigs online. So you can have a look on our website. It's puppetpodcast.com/call, and you can have a call with us and just chat about your business and to see if we can help you. So let's see how it goes. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. And yes, stay tuned. We have plenty of artists that we will interview, and feel free to reach to us and let's create this wonderful community as puppeteers. So see you soon.